I'd been looking forward to date night all week. I had my dress picked out, the restaurant chosen, even curled my hair the way Daniel always said he liked. And then his text came, short, almost careless. "Not feeling great, babe. Think I should stay in tonight." My heart sank. Sure, people get sick, I told myself. But the timing felt too perfect, too suspicious. The next morning, I let concern win over doubt. I made chicken soup, tucked it into a thermos, and got ready to drive across town. When I offered to drop it off, Daniel's response was immediate. No, don't, I'll be fine. You don't need to come all the way here." He was polite, but almost defensive. I stared at my phone, soup still steaming on the counter, wondering why he was so eager to keep me away. And then it happened again. Twice, actually. Each time, the same excuse. A sudden illness, canceled plans, and me left alone with my carefully made evenings. At first, I tried to brush it off, telling myself he was just unlucky, maybe overworked, but inside, I felt the shift. A quiet alarm ringing in my chest. Why was it always on nights that mattered most to me? Why did his excuses feel so rehearsed? The questions started to pile up, and I couldn't ignore them anymore. I remember one evening in particular. I had bought tickets for this cozy little jazz night, something I thought would brighten his mood. But just hours before he called, his voice flat, saying he couldn't make it. He didn't even cough, not once. He just said he wasn't feeling well. I sat there in my dress, heels by the door, staring at the empty night stretching out ahead of me. The strangest part wasn't just his absence. It was the way he made me feel like I was being unreasonable for worrying. "Don't fuss, Jess," he'd say, almost laughing, like I was overreacting. And I wanted to believe him. I really did. I wanted to be the easygoing girlfriend who trusted every word. But deep down, something was beginning to itch. A quiet unease I couldn't quite silence. I started to notice patterns. He'd cancel last minute, then vanish for the night. No calls, no updates, nothing but radio silence until the next morning. When I'd ask how he was feeling, his answers were vague, almost rehearsed. And I could feel my mind split in two. One side whispering that I was paranoid, the other side nudging me, louder each time, insisting that something was off. And it was getting harder and harder to ignore. By the third time he canceled, I stopped telling my friends the truth. I was embarrassed, honestly. "How do you explain that your boyfriend keeps getting mysteriously sick whenever you're supposed to spend time together?" I made excuses for him instead, covering for both of us. But inside, I was growing tired. Tired of waiting, tired of wondering, tired of feeling like a fool. At night, lying in bed, I replayed every detail. The tone of his voice, the way he rushed to hang up, the sudden coldness whenever I offered to come over. I thought about how different he used to be, eager, warm, always planning little surprises for us. Where had that man gone? What replaced him now was someone slippery, someone I barely recognized. And that thought gnawed at me. Still, I didn't say anything. Not yet. A part of me clung to the hope that I was wrong, that there was a reasonable explanation, that I was reading too much into it. But another part, well, it was already bracing for impact. Because when something doesn't add up, it usually means the truth is waiting just around the corner, and it rarely stays hidden for long. One Saturday afternoon, I decided to help Daniel tidy up his apartment. He wasn't exactly the neatest guy, and I thought maybe doing something kind and simple would bring us closer again. While folding laundry, I reached into the pocket of his jacket to check for loose change or receipts. That's when my fingers brushed against something stiff, 2 small crumpled slips of paper. I pulled them out and froze. They were movie ticket stubs. At first, I laughed quietly, thinking maybe they were old. But then my eyes caught the dates. My stomach twisted. The tickets were from the exact nights he had told me he was too sick to see me. My hands trembled as I smoothed the paper, reading every detail, desperate to be wrong. But there it was. Proof staring back at me. In that moment, it felt like the air had been knocked from my chest. My heart pounded so hard I thought he might hear it from the other room. I couldn't even move, just stood there holding the tickets like they were burning my hands. Because these weren't just scraps of paper. They were lies. Tangible, undeniable lies. And I knew instantly he hadn't been sick at all. I slipped the tickets back into the jacket pocket, my fingers shaking as though I'd just touched something poisonous. My mind was racing, trying to come up with excuses for him. Maybe he went alone. Maybe a friend gave them to him. But the truth was, deep down, I already knew. Nobody goes to the movies alone, not on a Friday night, and not twice. I sat down on the edge of his bed, staring at the floor, the sounds of the city drifting faintly through the window. Every laugh, every car horn, every noise outside felt louder than it should, like the world was going on while mine was starting to crack. I thought of all those nights I'd spent worrying about him, wondering if he was okay, while he was sitting in the dark, sharing popcorn with someone else. The realization hurt in a way I can't even describe. It wasn't just betrayal, it was humiliation. All those canceled plans, all those reassurances that he just needed rest. And here I was, the fool who had been bringing soup, while another woman had been taking my seat at the movies. The tickets weren't just stubs. They were a cruel reminder that the life I thought I had with him might not even exist at all. I could feel my chest tightening, like every breath was being stolen from me. I wanted to scream, to storm into the living room and demand answers right then and there. But instead, I stayed quiet, gripping those tickets until the edges dug into my skin. If I confronted him now, he'd deny it, twist it, make me feel crazy. I knew that pattern all too well. So I tucked the stubs into my purse, almost as if I was collecting evidence. A part of me hated myself for it, hated that I was sneaking around in my own relationship. But another part whispered that I wasn't sneaking. I was surviving. Because when someone lies to you this easily, you can't just rely on words anymore. You need proof. That night, as I lay beside him pretending to sleep, I couldn't stop replaying it in my head. The tickets, the laughter I imagined, the shadow of a woman sitting next to him in the theater. My heart ached, but at the same time a new fire was lit inside me. This wasn't going to end with me silently crying into my pillow. No, if he thought he could play me like a fool, he was about to learn how wrong he was. I didn't confront him right away. As tempting as it was to throw those tickets in his face, I knew better. If I did, he'd just talk his way out of it. Smooth words, half-truths, and that calm tone he always used to make me question myself. No, I needed more than a heated argument. I needed to see the truth with my own eyes. So I watched him, quietly, carefully. On the nights he claimed to be tired, I noticed how his phone suddenly went silent, how his usual stream of posts and stories disappeared. Daniel was always the type to share, a gym selfie, a photo of his dinner, even random snapshots of the city. But on those particular nights, nothing, just a void that told me more than words ever could. I started weaving casual questions into our conversations. "Seen any good movies lately?" I asked once, pretending to scroll through my phone. He didn't even flinch. He just shook his head and said, "Nah, haven't had the time." The sting of that lie hit me harder than I expected, but it also steeled me. If he wanted to play games, fine. I was ready to play too, only I planned on winning. The more I paid attention, the clearer it became. His excuses weren't just flimsy, they were identical, like he was reading from a script. Not feeling well, just need rest, don't worry about me. Each line recycled, rehearsed, delivered with the same flat tone. I started to wonder if he even noticed how predictable he sounded. Or maybe he thought I'd never dare question him. But here's the thing, once you see the cracks, you can't unsee them. I began noticing little details that betrayed him, a faint smell of cologne that wasn't his, tiny specks of glitter on his couch cushion, the way he'd sometimes smile to himself when he thought I wasn't looking. Small things, but they piled up, each one whispering the same painful truth. There was someone else. And with every discovery, I grew less heartbroken and more determined. If he thought he could chip away at my sanity, make me doubt my own instincts, he was mistaken. I wasn't going to be the girlfriend who swallowed her suspicions and kept quiet. I was going to be the one who uncovered everything, piece by piece, until he had nowhere left to hide. At night, I would lie awake, my back turned to him, eyes open in the dark. I'd listen to his steady breathing, wondering how he could sleep so peacefully while lying to me. My mind would replay every canceled date, every excuse, until the anger in my chest grew louder than the hurt. I realized then that silence was my weapon, not weakness. I started keeping a mental journal, cataloging every inconsistency, every slip. When he mentioned staying in on Friday, I noted the way his shirt smelled faintly of popcorn the next morning. When he claimed he hadn't been out in days, I remembered the faint crease in his jacket pocket where the ticket stubs had been. Each memory was a thread, and together they wove a net that would eventually trap him. But the more I uncovered, the more I understood one thing. A private confrontation wasn't enough. He'd twist it, deny it, make me look irrational. No, if I wanted justice, real, undeniable justice, I'd need to make sure the truth was revealed where everyone could see it. And that thought, as wild as it seemed at first, began to take root. The plan came to me one evening while I was scrolling through upcoming movie releases. There it was, a big premiere, the kind of event Daniel would never miss under normal circumstances. My heart raced as I pictured it. The perfect stage, the perfect setup. I bought 2 tickets immediately, but not for us to enjoy together. No, these tickets were going to be bait. A few days later, I asked him casually, "Hey, want to go to that premiere with me?" I watched his face carefully. He hesitated, just for a second, before the familiar excuse slid out of his mouth. "Not feeling too great. Maybe you should go without me." The words were so predictable I almost laughed. He didn't even realize he was walking straight into my trap. But here's the twist. I didn't go alone. I started reaching out, one by one, to his closest friends, even a few colleagues I knew he respected. I showed them the ticket stubs I had kept hidden, explained the pattern of lies. Some of them were shocked, others not so much. But together we agreed on one thing. Daniel needed to be exposed, and the premiere was the perfect place for it. I could feel my nerves buzzing as I laid it all out for them. Every canceled date, every excuse, every stub of evidence. One of his friends actually muttered, "Unbelievable," shaking his head like he'd half suspected it all along. Another looked embarrassed, like he'd been covering for Daniel without even realizing it. That's when I knew I wasn't crazy. I wasn't overreacting. The truth was undeniable, and now it wasn't mine alone to carry. We began planning, almost like co-conspirators in a heist. The idea wasn't to humiliate him for sport. No, this was about truth, about pulling off the mask he wore so easily. We decided that the premiere would be our moment. Everyone would be there, expecting nothing but a fun night. Daniel, smug as ever, would think he had gotten away with it. And that's when the curtain would fall. The closer the day came, the calmer I felt. It was strange. The anger that had once made my hands shake had transformed into something sharper, steadier. I wasn't just the betrayed girlfriend anymore. I was a woman who had seen the lies for what they were, and I wasn't afraid to show them to the world. And oh, I couldn't wait to watch his face when it all came crashing down. The night before the premiere, I barely slept. I lay awake, rehearsing it all in my head. The moment he'd arrive, the look on his face, the silence that would follow. I imagined the weight of those ticket stubs in my hand, ready to be revealed like a magician's final card. Except this wasn't a trick. This was the truth, laid bare for everyone to see. I kept picturing his reactions, running through them like scenarios in a play. Maybe he'd laugh it off, maybe he'd get angry, maybe he'd try to charm his way out of it. But none of it mattered, because this time he wouldn't just be facing me. He'd be facing his friends, his colleagues, people who knew him, trusted him. There would be no rewriting the script in his favor. And as I looked at my reflection in the mirror that night, I realized something powerful. I wasn't scared anymore. I wasn't clinging to excuses or hoping for him to change. I was ready. Whatever happened at that cinema, I knew one thing. Daniel's double life was about to end, and I'd be the one holding the final line of the story. The night of the premiere, I arrived early, heart pounding but face calm. I wasn't alone. His friends were already there, waiting, each of them carrying the quiet weight of what they knew. The theater lobby was buzzing with excitement, the smell of popcorn in the air, people dressed up for the big night. But for me, it wasn't just about the movie, it was about the moment. And then I saw him. Daniel walked in, not looking the least bit sick, not even pretending this time. His arm was casually draped around another woman, her smile bright, her hand linked with his. For a second, my stomach twisted. It was one thing to imagine her, another to see her in the flesh, but the hurt quickly gave way to something steadier, resolve. He had no idea what was waiting for him. The chatter died down when he noticed us, me standing there, surrounded by familiar faces. His eyes widened, confusion flashing before the smug mask returned. I stepped forward, slow and deliberate, holding the ticket stubs between my fingers. I could feel the eyes around us, the anticipation thick in the air, and I knew exactly what I was about to say. I held out the stubs, my voice steady, but loud enough for everyone nearby to hear. "Funny how you're never too sick for the movies," I said, looking straight at him. For a moment, it was as if the entire theater paused. His friends leaned in, the woman by his side stiffened, and Daniel froze, his usual smirk slipping right off his face. He opened his mouth, fumbling for words, but nothing came out. The silence was louder than any excuse he could have offered. The woman beside him looked at the stubs in my hand, then at him, and I saw the realization hit her like a wave. She yanked her arm away, her smile gone, her eyes sharp with betrayal. Suddenly, he wasn't standing so tall anymore. Around us, whispers started to ripple through the crowd. His colleagues exchanged glances, his friends shook their heads. The weight of every lie he'd told me was now pressing down on him, in public, where he couldn't escape. And in that moment, I didn't feel weak or broken. I felt powerful, because the truth was finally out, and it wasn't just mine to carry anymore. I didn't wait for his excuses. I didn't need them. Instead, I slipped the stubs into his hand like a final receipt and turned away, head high. The sound of whispers followed me, mixed with the rustle of popcorn bags and the shifting of feet. Behind me, I could almost feel his world crumbling, the glares from his friends, the icy stare of the woman he'd brought, the silence that exposed him far more than my words ever could. Walking toward the theater doors, I felt lighter than I had in weeks. My friends closed in around me, their presence like armor, and we moved together toward the screening as if nothing had happened. And when the lights dimmed inside, I smiled for the first time in a long while, knowing Daniel was out there, drowning in the wreckage he'd created. Later that night, I posted a picture from the premiere, me laughing, surrounded by people who actually cared about me. The caption was simple: "Some tickets are worth more than others." It wasn't about him anymore. It was about me reclaiming my place, my voice, my dignity. And deep down, I knew this wasn't the end of my story. It was only the beginning of a new one.